Hello Anchoraholics, this is Steve from SV Panopay, and I've decided to investigate further the resetting capability of this Aluminum Sarca Excel number 5. If you recall from the previous video, the anchor had a little trouble at times with my 180-degree wind or current reversal test. About half the time or so, the anchor drug considerably and only reset once the boat speed was reduced down to, say, a knot or a knot and a half. But one thing I noticed in that sequence was that the anchor seemed to be improving as the tests progressed, and a theory that I presented was that the tip of the fluke was becoming smooth just due to use, and it was smoothing out the metal that came originally from the factory with sort of a sandblasted grainy finish. So the anchor maker, Anchorite people, they called me, or they contacted me, and they concurred that my theory it has some validity, that the smoothing of the tip could possibly be making the anchor set better. But they also presented another hypothesis, and what they felt was that the way I had the shackle attached, and I had it like this, could possibly have been binding. And I couldn't see evidence of that in the videos, but I really didn't get good pictures. So that remains to be seen. But what they did is they asked me to redo the test if I could, and they understand that I'm kind of pressed for time with this, and they acknowledge that I'm getting a little weary of some of the testing. But in any event, they had hoped that I could retest by installing this larger shackle that can actually fit through, and then use two shackles in this orientation, and they felt that it's not going to be likely to bind and therefore cause a balance or a direction of pull issue. So I did that, and well, here's the results. Take a look. Okay, we're dropping the anchor in my standard test site, which consists of a sandy mud bottom. I'm using 3.5 to 1 scope and all chain rode. Here's the initial set with a 2-knot back down, and it sets right away, and it does hold 3,000 RPM reverse power. I'm going to cut out most of that just to keep the video short. Here it is at the first reset, the boat passing by at 3.5 knots, the anchor releases and resets within, say, 3 anchor lengths. Boat stopped real quickly, and then it turned it around and held the boat again at 3,000 RPM. Okay, the boat's now passing by for the second reset, anchor releases. Now for these I've held the boat speed high. It's certainly more than 2 knots, but it's maybe a little less than the 3.5 from the initial reset. I'll just let this roll. And the anchor sets and did stop the boat abruptly, and keep in mind I did not reduce the boat speed this time. So that's pretty good. Not ideal, but it's pretty good. Here's the anchor releasing again on the third reset. Oh, it drags maybe 3, maybe 4 anchor lengths and resets, stops the boat abruptly. Here's the fourth try. And again, I'm just driving the boat back and forth up over top of the anchor. And that was pretty quick. That one reset within about 2 anchor lengths. And here's the fifth and final reset test. Anchor releases. And it's hard to say exactly how far it's dragging, but certainly no more than 3 or 4 anchor lengths. So that was a real good performance. The anchor continues to improve. Here it is on retrieval. I'm really not seeing much of anything attached to the fluke there. So it's coming up real clean. Even the tip is clean. So maybe that theory of mine about the smoothing tip is a factor. Well, what do you know? Those 5 tests were really, really great. Just had the one longer drag, and it did reset all on its own without my reducing the boat speed very much at all. So all in all, really good performance, especially considering it is a lightweight alloy anchor. I think it's inconclusive what is happening and why the anchor is improved. It's certainly possible that the shackle orientation is a factor, but I don't think we have clear evidence of it. I don't think we need it. I think it's safe to say that if you have one of these aluminum Excels, just get one of these bigger shackles that fit through in this fashion and use it that way. That's a no-brainer. And then also you might consider taking some fine sandpaper and smoothing some of the fluke. Just the tip, I think, is all you really need to do. That's only if it's a brand new anchor and you haven't used it and you're expecting maximum performance. I don't think this was conclusive either, but it sure looks like that the smoothing of the surface of the fluke and the tip area is a factor. So I decided to do this same back and forth reset test on my other aluminum anchor. This is the 10-pound Fortress FX16. Here it is on the initial set. I'm just backing down the boat at 2 knots in my normal fashion, and then I set the anchor fully at 3,000 RPM in reverse. Here's the first reset. That's just about textbook. The anchor does not release. It remains engaged with the seabed and just rotates and brings the boat to an abrupt halt. Here comes my second reset. Boat's going by at 3.5 knots. Now I've slowed the motion down, and I think we're seeing one of the stocks upending. So the anchor gets flipped up over on its side and releases. I drag the anchor for many dozens of feet, starting at a really high speed, then I've slowed it down to a medium speed, then I'm just going creeping along at about a 1/2 knot here, and you can see the anchor on its side, and it does not reset. I just forget kicks. I turn the boat around and drive up over the other direction to see if maybe it'll set going the other direction, and it does not. It drags once again. So at that point I stopped the test and retrieved the anchor, and I was anxious to see what was going on. Maybe there was something jamming the flukes, but once it's raised up, we see exactly what's happening, and there we can see evidence the anchor shank is bent. Okay, here is my first anchor test casualty. We're not sure when this shank bent. It was either on the first or second course reversal reset test that I did, and as you saw, once the shank was bent, it was no longer able to reset. Now the Fortress anchor people, they're going to see this video undoubtedly, and they have a fantastic warranty policy. I believe it's lifetime, and anytime you have any damage to their anchors, they replace the parts for free. And Brian at Fortress Anchor has told me to go ahead and abuse and do whatever I want to this anchor for my testing. He thinks my tests are great, and no doubt he'll be replacing this shank for me, no questions asked. But a bigger question I have is perhaps this anchor just isn't big enough for my boat. The boat weighs 15,000 pounds, and well, it can generate some extremely high loads. I'm using all chain rods, so there's not a lot of stretch, and well, it may be wise for me to consider moving up a size in anchors. I intend to use this as a stern anchor, or an anchor that I can row or walk around and is lightweight. However, I do have this other aluminum lightweight anchor that could also be used in that same role. So I don't know, maybe I have some decisions to make about which one of these two anchors will become Panopè's stern or secondary anchor. So while I was out pulling those aluminum anchors back and forth, those reset tests, I thought I'd try the 44-pound Spade anchor, Steel Spade, see how it does. Previously I had tested the Super Sarca anchor back and forth, and it did real well, but the Manson Supreme, it did not. So I've been anxious to see how the Spade does. See the anchor trailing by right next to the anchor, boat's going by at 3.5 knots. Using the same scope, same seabed as all the other tests. The anchor gets flipped up over backwards and resets immediately. And I'll let this roll, and you can see for yourself, but on all 5 of these tests, the same thing happens. The anchor just either flips over or rotates and stops the boat immediately within just an anchor length or so. Very, very excellent performance. I know some people are going to be weight sensitive, maybe race boats or other needs, and they can't tolerate any extra weight on their bow. But I think I'll just go ahead and stick with steel anchors on the bow of my boat. They just seem to work so well. They're durable, and aluminum anchors will have a great role on the stern. So that was the last 5th reset there. We didn't get to see much, but it did stop the boat perfectly. Here it is on retrieval. We see a little bit of seabed attached to the fluke, and there we see the front parts clean as a whistle. So I appreciate everybody watching. I hope you anchor safely, and we'll see you next time.